The prairie was dying under the weight of dusk when Clay Maddox finally rode back toward home. For 3 weeks he'd been driving cattle through rough country, dust storms, long days in the saddle, cold nights spent listening to the wolves sing under the moon. Now, as his ranch came into sight, his chest filled with the familiar ache of weariness mixed with the small comfort of solitude. The open land stretched endlessly before him, waves of yellow grass bowing to the wind, a crimson sun sinking low beyond the buttes. He'd always thought of the land as honest. It didn't promise anything it couldn't give. It took what it wanted, but if a man worked hard enough, it let him stay. Clay had lived by that principle since the war ended, alone, stubborn, with nothing but his horse, his rifle, and the wide silence of the plains to keep him company. He rode slow, his horse's hooves thudding softly in the dirt. The sky had turned the color of spilled wine by the time he reached the fence line. Something felt off. His brow furrowed. The gate hung crooked on its hinges, as though it had been opened in a hurry. His instincts, honed from years of surviving both battlefields and the wild, flared. He nudged the horse forward, his eyes scanning every shadow. The house sat quiet, a small log cabin built by his own hands years ago. Usually, it welcomed him like a loyal old dog, but tonight it stood strange, foreign. One shutter banged softly in the wind, and then he saw it, the door. It was open, just slightly, creaking back and forth. Clay's jaw tightened. He slid off his horse without a sound, the weight of his Colt revolver steady in his palm. He'd had trouble before, bandits passing through, drifters looking for food. He'd learned not to take chances. Moving with the silent patience of a hunter, he stepped onto the porch. The boards creaked beneath his boots, the only sound besides the whistle of the prairie wind. He pushed the door open with the barrel of his gun. The smell hit him first, something faint, earthy, mixed with wood smoke and blood. His pulse quickened. Inside, the lamp flickered low, its golden light trembling over the room. There was someone in his bed. At first he thought it was a trick of the light, a shape under the blanket, still and small. Then the shape moved, a low groan slipping from it. Clay's eyes adjusted, and he froze. It was a woman. Her skin was bronze, warm like sun-touched clay. Her dark hair fanned across his pillow, tangled and heavy, streaked with dust and sweat. Her face was sharp yet soft in its exhaustion, lips slightly parted as she struggled to breathe. A torn sleeve revealed a bandaged arm, roughly done, soaked through with blood. A small pouch and a knife lay discarded on the floor beside the bed, and his old canteen sat empty near her hand. Clay lowered the gun slowly, his heart still pounding. "What in the world?" he murmured. As if sensing him, the woman stirred. Her eyes flickered open, deep, dark, and wary. When they locked onto his, there was fear there, yes, but also something else. Defiance. She tried to sit up, but pain flashed across her face, and she collapsed back against the mattress. Clay raised a calming hand, keeping his voice low and steady. "Easy now, you're hurt. Don't try to move." She muttered something in Apache, a language he didn't understand, though the tone was sharp and guarded. He shook his head. "Don't know what you're saying, ma'am, but I'm not here to harm you." The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. Clay took a slow step backward, giving her room. He holstered his gun and crouched near the table instead, where the lamp flickered weakly. His eyes stayed on her all the while, his thoughts racing. How had she gotten here? His ranch was miles from the nearest town or trail. He saw the exhaustion in her, the half-healed bruises on her wrists, the rough bindings around her arm. Whatever had driven her here hadn't been kind. The Apache were proud and private people, Clay knew that much. He'd traded with a few tribes now and then, and he knew the dangers they faced from both settlers and soldiers. When he looked at her again, she was watching him through half-lidded eyes, her breathing shallow. She seemed ready to bolt if she could stand. "Reckon you came here for shelter," he said softly. "You're welcome to rest. Ain't no harm will come to you here." She didn't answer, but her gaze flickered with something uncertain. Trust, maybe, or disbelief. Clay fetched a bucket from outside, filled it at the pump, and brought it in. He found a clean rag, knelt beside the bed, and dipped it in the cool water. The woman flinched when he reached for her forehead. "Just water," he murmured. "That fever's gonna burn you up if I don't do something about it." She hesitated, then let him. Her skin was hot to the touch, her pulse rapid beneath his fingers. As he pressed the damp cloth to her brow, she sighed, her body relaxing slightly. Clay studied her in the lamplight, the sharp line of her cheekbones, the small scar at her temple, the necklace around her neck made from tiny turquoise beads and deer sinew. Every detail told a story he didn't know, one carved from hardship and endurance. Outside, the wind shifted, howling low through the cracks of the cabin. The fire popped. The woman mumbled something under her breath. He caught one word he recognized, wind. Then she drifted into sleep again. Clay sat back, rubbing a hand over his face. He should have been angry. She'd broken into his home, used his bed, drunk his water. But as he looked at her, frail, feverish, lost, anger didn't come. What came instead was a kind of quiet pity, and something else deeper than he wanted to admit. The first light of dawn crept across the wooden floorboards, turning the dust motes in the air into tiny sparks of gold. Clay Maddox sat slouched in his chair near the door, his hat tilted forward to shade his tired eyes. He'd been awake all night, half expecting the Apache woman to wake in a panic, or to slip out into the morning mist and disappear. But she hadn't moved much. Her breathing had steadied, her fever cooled. She slept like someone who hadn't rested in weeks. He rubbed a hand across his face and sighed. "Guess you'll live, ma'am," he muttered softly. The fire crackled low in the hearth. Clay pushed himself to his feet and poured what was left of the coffee into a tin mug. Outside, the world was painted in rose and copper, the grass glinting with dew. His horse grazed lazily by the fence. Everything looked calm again, except the quiet unease twisting in his chest. He turned when he heard a faint sound. The woman stirred, groaning softly as she shifted on the bed. Then her eyes opened. For a moment, she looked around in confusion, her hand reaching instinctively for something that wasn't there, her knife. When she realized he was standing a few feet away, her muscles tensed, but she didn't speak. "Easy," Clay said quietly, setting his mug down. "You're safe here. You've been out near 2 days. You had a fever." She watched him warily, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. When she finally spoke, her voice was low and husky, the words careful, accented. "You, not soldier." Clay shook his head. "No, ma'am, just a rancher. Name's Clay Maddox." He tipped his hat slightly in greeting. She frowned, as if weighing his honesty. Then, after a pause, she said, "My name, Nita." "Pleasure's mine, Nita," he replied, though his tone carried the weight of 100 questions. He took a slow step closer, careful not to startle her. "You were hurt, bad, arms mending, but I reckon you'll need rest for a few more days." She looked down at the rough bandage wrapped around her arm, her brows knitting. "You do this? Yeah, didn't seem right leaving you to fend for yourself." Her gaze softened for a heartbeat, then hardened again. "I not belong here," she said quietly, shifting as if she meant to stand. "You're welcome to leave when you're strong enough," Clay said, voice firm but not unkind. "But if you try now, you'll fall before you reach the creek." She hesitated, pride and exhaustion warring inside her. Slowly, she lay back down, wincing as she moved her arm. Clay could tell the decision cost her something. Independence ran deep in her bones, he could see it plain as the scars on her skin. He went about his chores, leaving the cabin door open so she could see him. He split wood, fed the animals, fetched water, trying to ignore the feeling that the air had changed inside his home. It wasn't just the presence of another person, it was her. The quiet strength she carried, even in her broken state, unsettled something in him that had been still for too long. When he came back in, she was sitting up, studying his old family photograph on the mantel, a faded image of a woman and a little girl. She turned toward him as he entered, curiosity flickering in her dark eyes. "My wife and daughter," Clay said quietly, setting down a bucket of water. "Lost him near 3 winters ago. Fever took 'em both." Nita lowered her gaze, murmuring something under her breath that sounded like a prayer. "You alone long time," she said softly. Clay nodded. "Guess so." He knelt by the hearth, stoking the fire. "But it's quiet. I got used to it." Nita's lips curved just slightly, though it wasn't quite a smile. "Quiet is not same as peace." Her words hit him deeper than he expected. He looked up at her, meeting her eyes, but she'd already turned away, studying the window instead. By evening, color had returned to her cheeks. Clay cooked what little he had, beans, bread, and stew, and offered her a bowl. She accepted it with both hands, sniffed it warily, then took a bite. Her face relaxed as the warmth spread through her. "Good," she said simply. He chuckled. "Ain't the first time I heard that from a hungry soul." They ate in near silence, the crackle of the fire and the distant howl of coyotes filling the space between them. Every so often, Clay caught her looking at him, not out of fear, but curiosity. After supper, he cleaned up while she studied the small space around her, the tools, the shelves, the books she couldn't read but traced her fingers over anyway. "You build all this?" she asked. "Every stick of it," he said. "Took me 2 years." She nodded slowly. "You make your home strong." Her tone carried more meaning than the words themselves, and for a moment, Clay didn't know how to answer. He looked around at the cabin, the worn furniture, the rough walls, the life that had once been full. "Yeah," he said finally, his voice quiet. "Used to be stronger." Nita glanced at the photograph again and said nothing. But in her silence, there was understanding. That night, Clay lay on the floor near the door, wrapped in a blanket, letting her have the bed. He couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, the guarded strength, the pain beneath it, the mystery of what had brought her to him.